Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to another video. It is a Premier League aftermath video we are doing for you today. We're going to be looking back over the weekend's fixtures and picking 5 major talking points that occurred across the round of Premier League fixtures that are just played out. But before we go any further into getting into the talking points, I would like to remind you to please like the video and also subscribe if you're new. Both things always and forever be greatly appreciated, of course. But for now, let's go back into the video talking about the 5 major talking points from the past weekend's round of Premier League fixtures, beginning with an unhappy return for one Claudio Ranieri. Yes, we're going to begin with Claudio Ranieri's return to the Premier League. It was an unhappy one, to say the least, for the Italian. Of course, Saturday saw the return of Claudio Ranieri, now at his current club in Watford. But on the day, Liverpool were the visitors to Vicarage Road, and they well and truly beat the Hornets as they ended up winning 5-0, giving Claudio a very, very bad return to England's top flight division. There was a hat-trick from Bobby Firmino. Sadio Mane also got on the score sheet when he opened the scoring. And there was another superb individual piece of brilliance by one Mohamed Salah. Seriously, a phenomenal, fantastic goal yet again by the Egyptian King. Really putting Watford to the sword in this game, but the talking point is obviously, we could go on and talk about Liverpool. I have talked about Liverpool in the video on this, so I'm going to go from a Watford angle, and I'm going to say that it is a bit of an understatement when I say this, but if you didn't already know before that game, then he certainly does now, that there is much work to be done at Watford for Claudio Ranieri this season. But the question obviously will be, will he get the time to enforce that change? Remember, the job at Watford as manager isn't exactly the most stable of jobs. And with a tough run of fixtures coming up for the Hornets in the coming games, coming weeks, coming months, if Ranieri has already moved into the area, I wouldn't be unpacking my stuff much anytime soon, just in case they decide to get rid of him pretty quickly. Number 4, Manchester City beat Burnley, but you already knew that. It was becoming a very boring and repetitive story season after season. Manchester City, yet again, beat Burnley on Saturday. Now, the only upside for Burnley in this is that this wasn't the usual and humiliating 5-0 hammering that they normally receive at the hands of Manchester City. Instead, Pep Guardiola's side decided to take it a little bit easier on them this time, only dishing out the 2-0 victory to Sean Dyche's side instead, with both Bernardo Silva and Kevin De Bruyne amongst the goals. City continue their push for the title challenge, but the angle I'm coming at here is from the angle of Burnley. Burnley are still without a win this season, and with some extremely tough fixtures on the horizon for the Clarets, it's going to be a real scrap for Burnley to remain in the Premier League for another season, it seems. Maybe, just maybe, their time in England's top flight division has come to an end for now. But it will be interesting to see how they fare going forward. Number 3, Super Mendy denies Brentford. A brave Brentford side showed no fear against Chelsea and was somewhat unfortunate not to come away with anything against the Blues on Saturday night. Ben Chilwell proved to be the difference maker on the day, scoring the only goal of the game to maintain Chelsea's status at the top of the Premier League. But it wasn't through lack of trying for the Bees that they came away with nothing. Brentford were denied by both the post and multiple saves from Chelsea goalkeeper Edouard Mendy as the Bees went in search of an equaliser that ultimately never came, despite them pinning Chelsea back into their own penalty area for most of the second half. But despite the results, there was a lot of positives to take away from this performance and a lot to be proud of from their players and their manager, Thomas Frank. Brentford have been a breath of fresh air this season in the Premier League and have proven that they can compete with anybody and everyone that they come up against. They have truly been an interesting and exciting team to watch, And fingers crossed that that continues going forward. Number 2, Ole In or Ole Out. I made a video on this on Sunday, so I won't be covering too much of old ground here, but I think it's worth mentioning nonetheless. Leicester City beat Manchester United 4-2 on Saturday thanks to goals from Yuri Tillemans, Kaglos Soyuncu, Jamie Vardy and Patson Daka, and as a result Leicester got 3 points and therefore heaped more pressure onto United manager Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. United did open the scoring through a superb Mason Greenwood goal. Truly an amazing goal. But unfortunately, because of the results, that didn't go in United's favour. And of course, the aftermath of the game in which we are talking about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer more, that goal, as amazing as it was, does get sort of overshadowed and overlooked somewhat. So give it some praise while it's there. And of course, Marcus Rashford as well marked his return to the United squad by getting amongst the goals as well, getting on the score sheet. But yet again, defensive errors and midfield errors in particular truly cost United yet again, with many people pointing out the same mistakes that are happening time and time again and calling more of Ole's decisions, coaching and management all into question. United have some huge games coming up in the coming weeks, not just in the Premier League, of course, but also in the Champions League. They've got back-to-back encounters with Atalanta beginning this week, of course, and then on Sunday they have a huge Premier League game with Liverpool as well. It's looking like it's going to be a tough and testing time for United and for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in particular. And despite some reports, some rumours out there that are circulating that the United board remain confident in Solskjaer's ability, we know it could all change very quickly, and it could even change as fast as this week if, of course, results do not go in United's favour in both the Champions League and the Premier League. Do not believe everything you see or hear, but it could be a very tough and possibly a very bad week for everybody associated with Manchester United. And finally, number 1, Spurs rain on Newcastle's parade. And this is arguably the biggest takeaway point from this weekend's past round of fixtures. It's Tottenham's victory over Newcastle as Nuno Espirito Santo's side ruined the Magpies celebrations on Sunday. Following the Newcastle takeover, which you may or may not have heard about this week, depending on if you've been living under a rock or not, there was a sense of optimism and intrigue at the sense of a fresh start at St James's Park on Sunday when the game kicked off. But it didn't get off to the best of starts overall. Yes, it did initially get off to the perfect and dream start for Newcastle. The opening couple of minutes saw Callum Wilson head home to break the deadlock for Newcastle very early on. But that goal only seemed to awaken Tottenham, who went on to equalise through Tanguy and Ndombele, and then went ahead through Harry Kane, finally opening his goal-scoring account for the season, getting his first goal in the Premier League. Although I have to admit, was this his audition to possibly try and entice the new owners of Newcastle to sign him? I joke, of course, or maybe not. Only time will tell. There then came a suspension in the game, of course, a truly horrific moment where a member of the crowd needed urgent medical attention. Fair play and massive respect to the players that were involved in alerting the referee and alerting the medical staff to the situation. Sergio Reguilon and Eric Dyer were the ones that were heavily involved in alerting everybody to what was going on in the crowd at the time. And thankfully the fan was stabilised, taken to hospital and is recovering. So well done to everybody involved that helped the supporter in that aspect, particularly to the players who drew the attention of the referee and the medical staff to what was going on in the crowd. So fair play to everybody involved. Following the suspension though, the game did go on to eventually resume. Heung-min Son got Tottenham's third goal, and then in the second half things went from bad to worse for the Magpies when substitute John Joe Shelby was sent off for his second bookable offence very late on, and then Eric Dyer scored a comical own goal to kind of make the finale pretty interesting and give Newcastle a bit of a hope of stealing something from this game. But Spurs held on to the win and got all 3 points. A big 3 points for Spurs. They rain on the parade of Newcastle, like I mentioned. They overcame the Newcastle atmosphere and the wave of excitement to rain on the parade. And as for Newcastle, it's a very bad result. Still in need of their first win of the season, of course, but there is hope of a better future when the investment starts to be pumped into this club, of course. Obviously, the next issue is their managerial situation. Steve Bruce took charge of his 1000th game as a manager on Sunday, but his days at Newcastle seem to be very much numbered. Large portions of the stadium were heard calling for Bruce to be sacked, and as soon as the new hierarchy have a plan in place and the correct and suitable candidate to replace Bruce ready and raring to go, that is when they will pull the trigger on dismissing Bruce and getting rid of him and bringing in someone else. How long that will be, though, we don't properly know. But I would imagine it's going to be very, very soon. Possibly, I'm imagining by the next international break, maybe sooner. But I would imagine maybe by the next international break is possibly when we could see that happening. Newcastle fans will have to wait a little bit longer, be a bit more patient on the managerial situation, but it was a good win for Spurs, a bad day for Newcastle, despite a bright future ahead. But as I always say, these are just the thoughts, comments, opinions, predictions, whatever you want to call it, of this guy. I want to know what you guys think. What do you make of this past weekend's Premier League fixtures? What do you make of the talking points that I talked about? The Liverpool versus Watford game, the Burnley versus Manchester City game, Chelsea, Brentford, Ole In, Ole Out, Manchester United, Leicester, and of course Spurs beating Newcastle. What do you make of Newcastle's future? What do you make of Spurs? Their inconsistency again seems to be taking another level, shall we say. I'd love to know your thoughts, comments, opinions, predictions, whatever you want to call it, down below in the comment section on any of the games that happened this weekend or anything that I talked about in this video. Or make for interesting reading. Otherwise, hit the like button on the way if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you're new or want to see more content like this. Both things are always and probably greatly appreciated. And as always, thank you all so much for watching and listening. I've been Fletch, this has been another Fletch Talks video, and I will see you all again soon in another video.